My toolkit is over collaboration with individuals from diverse backgrounds. Most educators would agree that educational programs are strengthened when families and school personnel work together effectively. It is particularly critical when working with families whose home cultures differ from that of the schools. Unfortunately, schools often have been challenged the most in developing effective collaborative relationships. Understanding family systems and the cycle of families can form a new start to effective interactions. To meaningfully collaborate with them, you should also review and expand your knowledge of how cultural factors may affect the relationships and how family functioning and interactions that occur may be affected by the nature of the child's ability. In 2002, students of color comprised nearly 40% of the student population. 22% of those students have disabilities. The National Center for Educational Statistics stated that by next year, 2020, 50% of the students in U.S. public schools will come from diverse backgrounds. When parents and teachers communicate and families are actively involved in the education of their child in school, the student will typically receive higher grades and test scores, complete more homework, have better attendance, and exhibit more positive attitudes and behaviors. Studies have observed the positive outcomes regardless of students' ethnic, racial background, and socioeconomic status, noting that students at risk of failure have the most to gain when schools involve families. The most common barriers that affect professionals' interactions with diverse students and families. Barriers to involvement exist for both schools and families. Some of the barriers are created by limited resources, while others originate from the beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes of families and school staff. Some of the factors that affect professionals' interactions with diverse students and families are cultural influences, language barriers, family involvement, subtle communication issues, and lack of knowledge of culture. Cultural influences are when diverse students tend to be disadvantaged by school culture and curriculum. Many of the individuals have different norms and practices than the school does. For example, Japanese tend to be straight-faced when happy and smile to mask unpleasant feelings such as anger or sadness. In Islamic cultures, the left hand is considered unclean. It is offensive to use it to offer something to someone. Arabian prefers to stand close to the speaker, and Southeast Asians use two fingers instead of one to point. So it is important to be aware of those behaviors in order not to offend anyone. Language barriers. Students who come from non-English speaking homes and backgrounds. English language learners, students, may struggle with classroom activities and assignments. The family may not be fluent in English either. Family involvement. Parents' lack of time, transportation, resources, and childcare are factors that keep families from being involved. Families may also feel intimidated or unwelcomed at school. There is a lack of mutual understanding between parents and teachers with the result of mistrust. If colleagues or family members see themselves strictly as part of a disenfranchised group, they may interact in a way that conveys powerlessness. Subtle communication issues. Students sometimes do not understand an assignment. Families may feel like there is no communication about the educational plan for their child. Miscommunication can happen with families and schools, either by misinterpretation of conversations or not being involved with updates on their child. Lack of knowledge. School personnel being unaware of their own cultural biases. Misinterpretation can come from not knowing the cultural background of the student and family. Resolution to these barriers would be cultural influences. Be aware of cultural norms and practices. Incorporate diverse families' homes, cultures into the school curriculum. families may come visit the classroom and share their cultural beliefs and customs. The language barriers. Newsletters can be sent home in the family's native language. During parent-teacher conferences, contact an interpreter or colleague who is fluent in both languages to help you fully understand what is being said. Within the classroom, language barriers can be fixed by using visuals, the buddy system, giving assistance, and reinforcement for students, especially ELL students. Family involvement. Teachers should reach out personally to the families either by phone call or face-to-face interactions. This will allow the families to feel like they are welcomed and that the teacher knows their child. These families will be more likely to reciprocate, work collaboratively, and share information about their child. Another way to get the families involved is by sending emails, newsletters, or calling them to let them know about fundraisers, parent-teacher conferences, back-to-school nights, and other family or student participation programs. Subtle communication issues. The resolution would be to try restating, summarizing, or paraphrasing what the topic of talk was about. Two-way relationships are best built when both parties bring their expertise and opinion to it. Encourage reciprocal communication, which means listen attentively, summarize or paraphrase conversations, ask appropriate questions, and use constructive feedback. The lack of knowledge. Understand that professionals are more effective in their communication with family members from diverse backgrounds when they are aware of their own cultures and biases and work to understand others' cultures. Be aware and understand the views of other cultures to avoid miscommunication or interpretation. And also understand that not all members of a cultural group share the same values. Tips for collaboration with individuals from diverse backgrounds. Understanding the culture of a student's family because this contributes to his structure, values, and beliefs. Also, understand while working with diverse individuals and families is that culture is dynamic and always changing and evolving. Culture, language, ethnicity, and race are powerful influences on an individual's values, beliefs, and behaviors. However, they are not the sole influences. Gain cultural self-awareness by learning specific information about other cultures through reading, travel, and interactions with representatives from diverse groups. Co-decision-making results when both the teacher and family take responsibility for the child's education. Understanding, respecting, and valuing diverse groups. The greatest challenge is interacting with families and communities where students live. Just be respectful and value the differences, open to learning and committed to self-examination and change. Overall, by learning about your students' families' background and communities, encouraging them to teach you about priorities, and recognizing your own potential biases will eliminate any of the barriers faced with collaboration with individuals from diverse backgrounds.